Hello, Matt.
Hello, Josette.
How are you, darling?
You moved in on that mic quick.
Yeah, I did. I was coming in like a shark today. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, I'm great. This was a wonderful conversation. Cameron's so sweet.
Isn't she amazing? She's just so delicious. I just love this woman. And she's just such I don't know, I feel like wherever she goes and wherever I'm in her company, I always feel like there's an aliveness and like a deepening of the world around me in a sense. Like everything becomes more delightful. So yeah, I'm so glad she could gift us a bit of her time today and share her. I mean, I found this really interesting, actually. A lot of stuff about producing I didn't know. A lot of things about the business that were kind of amazing nuggets. And then as always, just lovely inspiration, of course, as far as the creativity.
Yeah, it's so cool to specifically to chat with her about her job, because I think that there's so much mystery around what people who aren't the words that we know, like, you know, writer, director, actor in film, and hearing it from someone who is also not, she's obviously seasoned in the sense that she's been doing it for a while, but she hasn't been doing it for 25 years and has become rote. She's discovering a lot about the job and a lot about herself in the job and what she wants for her life. That's what I found the most interesting. Yeah,
it's wild. It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
A little peek behind the black curtain that we don't normally get. Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, I hope everyone enjoys this conversation as much as we did. And yes, presenting a beautiful chat with Cameran Surles. Cameran Surles, welcome. Hello, my darling.
God. I don't think I've ever heard you sing.
I don't think I've ever sung on the podcast before, actually. It's probably a thing I shouldn't do again.
I exclusively do it. This is going to be your first musical podcast.
Oh my gosh. Well, only if you join in.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the Makers Podcast. This is my dear friend Cameran. This is my darling friend Matt. It's very wonderful to connect the two of you together, actually.
I'm so glad to know you. Yes, and to meet you.
I feel like, Cam, you are, though, one of the more busy human beings I know. You and Matt Jackson both actually are ridiculously busy. And I always wonder how you manage to do all the things you're doing. So maybe we can unpack a little bit of that today, and figure out how you are balancing and negotiating your creative journey as well as the sort of wild, amazing, badass producer journey that you're navigating. I'd love to hear a little. Maybe you can give us the sort of elevator pitch of how you got here and fill us in on sort of what you're doing right now, and then we can spring from there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I have to say that I just started listening to that Oprah podcast that you sent me that's like about protecting your time and focus. So now I feel very attacked. Like, oh my God, I'm too busy and to my detriment. I'm not like focusing on anything. Just like a little like ADD, like, ooh, squirrel.
Well, he also talks about going away. I need to send you that podcast, Matt, because it's rather remarkable. But he also speaks about sort of disappearing for 3 months. And I thought, and being offline completely. And I thought, my God, that sounds like a dream.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I just kind of did it for a week and a half. I prepped everyone for it, said I'm going to be out of town for a week and a half. And I didn't really respond to anything, during that time period. And I got to say, it was like completely rejuvenating. And when you come back on the other side of it, people are so cool. Like just because I think sometimes we think people have these expectations of us always being on it and everything else. And maybe somebody didn't realize I was gone. I'm just like, hey, just came back from a family vacation, had a great time, People are just like, oh, so fun. Where'd you go? So I think that we have a misconception sometimes of what our time means to other people.
Totally. Yeah, it's that FOMO that's just like constantly running. And it's like realistically, you're fine. Like, you didn't miss
You're totally
anything.
fine.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's making me think of this. Here's a nugget. It's making me think of that Michaela Coel Emmy speech that she gave when she won for her extraordinary show, I May Destroy You. And she basically gave a nugget to all the writers and said, don't be afraid to disappear. Because in this world where we feel visibility is the most sort of powerful thing, don't be afraid to disappear and hear what you get in the quietness. I'm paraphrasing it terribly. She wrote it way better than I'm saying it now. But that, when I listen to that, it makes me weep. And I think, holy fuck, when am I disappearing again? You know? Anyway, Cam, we're being very distracted now. But now we're making a podcast and being distracted instead of talking about you.
I even forgot the question. No, but I think that also, it's like what I feel like my thing right now that I don't know, maybe it's a lifelong journey, is that trust. You know, the trust that if you disappear, you're not really disappearing.
No.
Like, you won't become absolutely obsolete. But that's hard. That's like a really evolved place to be, where you can trust that your ability is still there. You can trust that what's meant for you won't pass you by. You can trust that all of these things. That's just it's intellectually yeah, of course, but viscerally, that's a difficult thing to kind of arrive to, that maybe will be our lifelong journey.
Oh my God, because we believe relevance is what is profitable or is what is important, and it's just not. That's the thing. I think your deepest, most delicious creativity is what's important, really, and you have to find a way to sort of foster that. And I suppose being away from the world is the best place to find that. Oh God. We're all booking a retreat after this call.
Let's do it. Yes, I was distracted. So what was your question?
Well, I just want to know about you, Cam. That's what we've called you on for. I just said, basically, if you could give us a kind of, elevator pitch or tiny little version of sort of how you ended up where you are and where you find yourself on your creative journey right now.
Yeah, I've been doing this pitch a little bit lately because I'm looking for a new job and just meeting a lot of people and I always kind of preface it by saying I kind of have an atypical journey, which is funny. I think it's something that in some circles makes me a little insecure, but if I'm truthful, I'm very thankful for it. I think it's really only to my benefit, but and plus everybody has an atypical journey, whatever that air quotes means, but I always wanted to act, really, is how it all got started. And I moved out. Well, first of all, I went to school. I'm from Texas. I went to school at UT in Austin, and it's so funny. I studied business because it was a hard, quote, hard to get into school, but I got in and school was kind of easy. I'm whatever, life is later. I just had that mentality of things work out and it will be fine. Where in retrospect, I wish I had gone to theater school or something. Who knows? Hindsight is 2020. But anyway, in Austin, did a lot of theater, did as much film as I could. I worked on Tree of Life, which was this Terry Mallick movie with, Brad Pitt and Sean Penn.
Yes.
And my first studio movie was just a juggernaut, I wasn't in it. I was working in casting and then became a PA. But my very, very first job on any movie was sweeping up Brad Pitt's hair because he was in the office for a makeup consult.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Did you keep any?
I mean, I know, right?
Yeah.
I actually just had a call with Ron Howard last week, and even he asked, he was like, oh man, you gotta,
Right.
That was a mistake.
Should have put some in a bag. Yeah.
Totally. But I think that was my mentality. I mean, obviously I wouldn't have done that ever, I know we're joking, but that was always my mentality then of I'm going to be Brad Pitt. This is the beginning. I'm going to make it. I had no concept of what life truly had in store for me.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. I do really remember thinking, I've arrived, obviously, this is it. But then when I moved to LA, I graduated, I called the EP on the movie and was I don't know anyone, can you help me in LA? And he connected me with the casting director, Francine Maisler, who is what I didn't know at the time, but very quickly learned is just a huge, prolific, touted casting director who is
she's remarkable.
She's amazing taste. She has worked with every director, found all the Oscar winners. And so that was a really amazing kind of transformative experience for me because my very first job in LA, I was on a studio. I was working with directors that are huge that I've looked up to, and that I was reading in the audition rooms with Oscar winners, with people that don't audition for most casting directors, like audition for Francine, that sort of thing. So it was really cool. And again, kind of just validated that erroneously learned belief that like, this is easy. I've made it, like Jim Brooks, who was another like director I loved growing up, ended up writing a part for me in a movie. That's how I got my SAG card. And I went like shot for like 2 months on the East Coast. And, like the first year I had been in LA. So I was like, well, some people say it's hard, but I got it. And then I never worked again. So
oh gosh, Cam.
I mean, not really, but so that I did that for a while. I made a lot of good friends and connections and had like a great experience in really what movie making is. But then I left and did kind of bounce around for a little bit, kind of struggled to find my place in acting and in an attempt to take some agency back. I started writing more, which I'd always done. I was always read voraciously and always sort of wrote, but read a bunch of scripts, went to a bunch of classes, like started writing a bunch of scripts and really loved it. Started producing a little on my own, just in an attempt to like get things done, and placed in a bunch of like contests and kind of got my groove that way and was like, oh, maybe this is something I can do. And I think it's a common experience that out of hardship, you kind of find a new path or something you're good at, or kind of the silver lining of maybe not booking, not working is like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
So that takes me kind of to a couple years ago. I was pitched to who is now my current boss, Adam Goodman, who used to run Paramount. So he was like the president of Paramount and before that DreamWorks. And so a really like tenured studio feature guy, I mean, has worked, made billions and billions of dollars on movies, worked with a ton of people and made a ton of movies that like we loved. And he was starting a new company and needed writers. So I was originally pitched as a writer. And I pitched him some ideas, sent him some samples. And he was like, actually, can you come run this department? And I was like, okay, I'm a waitress.
Oh
but
my
sure.
God, Cam, it's so incredible. It's so incredible.
You were waiting tables at the time when this happened? No way.
I know.
What a leap.
What a crazy thing, right? And it was very lucky. Because at the time, running the department meant working with writers. So I worked with Josette. I worked with I called, just every writer that I knew, and I got to know more agents and just ran writers' rooms, which is also a great skill to learn because I know eventually I want to run a writer's room, and I have years now of experience doing that.
My God, I know eventually you will be running, not even eventually, in the very near future, my darling, because holy heavens. First of all, Matt, I need Cam to send you some of her scripts because her writing is extraordinary. It's a tragedy, travesty, whatever, some T word that needs to be dramatic, that the stuff is not made yet. I think that's the biggest... the biggest cruelty to the world is that we can't just say, here's a link to Cameron's show, because holy heavens. She sent me a pilot a couple of weeks ago and I was like, what the fuck, Cam? How did you just do this? And she says, I just wrote this over the weekend. I was like, oh, great. The rest of us are over here struggling and this one's just banging out a pilot in the weekend. I mean, oh my goodness. It's ridiculous.
And then, of course, right now I'm sitting in this feeling like, well, I'll never do that again, of course. That was the one time.
No, it's remarkable.
Thank you.
I think the thing too is just to have been blessed enough to sort of be able to be in one of your writers' rooms and experience that feeling of what you're able to facilitate. I mean, it really is incredible to see. I don't think a lot of friends get to see their friends in their positions of genius or their moments of power. And it's such a gift to have a window into you in that space, because you facilitate those rooms with just such a kindness and a generosity. And there's just such a feeling of everyone's welcome. Everyone's ideas are great. Even if they're not, half the shit I said was probably terrible, but it always felt just so fun and playful and effortless, and it's all the things you kind of wish a writer's room could be is what you're able to create. And I just, oh God, it's magic. It's pure magic.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I do think that, it's empathy and curiosity, and that's all it is, and you don't find a good idea until you get through a lot of bad ideas. So in these rooms, go down every road. And like, yeah, we'll figure out the better choice eventually. We'll figure out the most compelling, interesting choice eventually. But, you know, I don't know. For me, we're all sensitive little like exposed wires.
God,
you know, like, I don't understand how people are creative leaders in a like tyrannical way. I don't respond well to that. I just like kind of go inward. So that's, you know, when we're all running the show, the benevolent ruler.
Oh my God, when and soon. That's for damn sure.
Have either of you read Down and Dirty Pictures, the book?
No.
It's I'm not sure how old the movie is or the book is exactly, but it's very interesting because it covers essentially sort of the advent of the popular mainstream independent movie. So it was sort of covering that time period where you know, Miramax and Lionsgate and people like that were coming up. And so what's really interesting though is that when everything about Harvey Weinstein came out, everyone was like shocked, mind blown, I can't believe it. I had already read the book, so I was like, I already knew all that, because it's kind of in the book about what a tyrant he really was. And one of the things that a story that really stands out was just something about how awful he was to Guillermo del Toro. And and it's a fascinating thing because I know, but that's what I think about a lot is, you know, when you're functioning on that high level of creativity and you have like these geniuses in front of you who are creating, I don't really, it doesn't compute at all in my mind that you could act like a tyrant around these people and make it your way or the highway. I have found that not only can good ideas come from anywhere, good ideas come from saying kind of yes to everything in a little, like in a little way, not saying that's the direction we're going, just saying, yeah, great idea, moving on. Because that great idea that you kind of push to the side might be the great thing that breaks the story or whatever. Yeah.
Oh my God, of course.
Yeah, ideas are not a finite resource. I think that's, you know, so sad about Harvey Weinstein in so many ways, but I do think there is like such a pervasive culture of that in leadership and in the studio system and in producers. And I mean, I only know this industry. I'm sure in the C-suite level of any industry, it's kind of like that. They're all like a little bit cuckoo.
I'm sure.
But I want to think that like our generation is changing it. As we become people in positions of power, I feel like we're more willing to be open. We're more willing to lend a hand down. We're more willing to just like, this is bullshit. Like I don't have to be treated this way. It doesn't have to be this way.
I think it's so true. And also even just thinking about the generation that's sort of following us, while I have my absolute confusion with them and sort of, there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, wait, this is what it's going to be like now. But there is also sort of there is a lack of patience in them to put up with any crap that they don't want to have to deal with. And I think that us and them are definitely going to change things. You know, there's a way that this just won't be how it was for sure. You know, it can't be.
So how then did you, you know, when we were talking about you were waiting tables and then suddenly you're running a writer's room. I think that what's interesting is that you'd had your dual life going. You were doing the thing to make the money and you were working in film. So you were in essence ready, but were you ready for the leadership? How did you get yourself into that zone of leadership and that kind leadership that we're talking about?
Yeah. You know, I'm like trying to decide how transparent or diplomatic I should be.
Sure. As far as you want.
Because it's just the three of us listening, right?
Of course. No one will ever hear this.
For all of my frustrations with my current job and situation and leadership and here, my boss was very gracious to me, like when I was first hired, and he always empowered me to speak up and always encouraged my ideas. And I think so much of all of this is just being given permission, or even if that's from yourself. So when I had an encouraging boss who encouraged me to speak up, even in meetings when I was like, I literally last week was waiting tables and now I'm in meetings with a bunch of people and my voice is valued, gave me the permission to say like, oh, that's right. I do know what I'm talking about. And like, the more I talk, the more confident I am and the more I can kind of figure out. And again, thinking that it's all about having a point of view. First of all, that's like the biggest thing that I've learned in this job is I'm never going to just send an email. I'm going to send an email with my point of view. I'm going to bring something up with my point of view. I'm going to reach out. I have a list of writers and directors. It's kind of like, I mean, this is like nitty gritty of like executive stuff, but like people will alphabetize a list of writers and directors. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to rank it in the order of like, I'm excited about going out to these writers in this order. And this is why. So I think, it's just, I think it's a combination of confidence and vulnerability, like confidence in saying like, I know what I know and I don't know what I don't know. So if you can kind of like find a marriage of that, and then I think you're going to probably end up succeeding in the long run.
It requires such flexibility with the ego, though. I mean, just describing that ability to say, I don't know, it's such, because for a long time, everybody thought that was strength or that was power, is knowing everything, So I think having that, I know, isn't that so strange? It's so strange with all the information we have on vulnerability and sort of, growth, everything we've achieved, and with as far as like psychology and everything. It's just strange to me that people still think that is a plus. I know.
And I think
do you?
some people go. Sorry, I think maybe my internet's bad.
No, sorry.
What was I going to say? Oh, and you just like, I think. Some people are so deeply scared of that. I just finished watching like The Dropout, and it's like, she's extreme, of course, like she's a psychopath, but it's like convincing herself that she knows when clearly she doesn't know, or not anything, but just like over and over examples of not knowing where she presents that she knows. And I think that's a lot of what you see.
Did you watch the documentary? The original on that? And it's very interesting because you can also learn some positives about leadership, and one of those things is that when you have a point of view that's so compelling, and people follow you into the woods and into the boats and let's go, then the responsibility becomes even greater to be more transparent and to be vulnerable and to accept the direction, because there were moments in time where she had an opportunity to say, this isn't working, we have to stop and break it and start over, and it's going to cost billions more, but it's worth it for us to actually do it right. But instead basically led an industry down a road to a brick wall. And so that there was some lessons in that I took as saying, before you hit the brick wall, when you see it coming and you go, I have to break it first, and yes, disappoint a lot of people, and but as the leader, those are the decisions you have to make. It's rough, but you have to do it. We hope you love listening to the Makers podcast as much as we love making it.
And if you would like to show your support and keep us going and keep us making magic and bringing these gorgeous creative conversations to you, perhaps you'd consider becoming a contributor to the Makers podcast. If you'd like to do so,
visit anchor.fm/themakers/support to get started. And now, back to the show.
Cam, so for those who don't, sorry, I'm segueing. Oops. Did you want to say something else? No. Okay. Before I'm just like, okay, and we're on.
Moving on.
Moving along. No, I'm interested. So I think there probably are a lot of folks who will listen to this in the future and who, when this airs, who maybe don't have a consummate understanding of what it is to be an executive producer, what it means to even be in development. I wonder if you can give us just a tiny window into what that even means, actually.
So development, I guess if you work at a production company or a studio, having usually, at least my company, a lot of our ideas are internally generated. So that's me coming up with an idea of a movie. Like, this could be a movie. It's a log line. It's a character. It's something that I think is compelling. It's a piece of talent. And then it's figuring out how to get it made. So usually that involves finding a writer. So you reach out to a bunch of agents and find a bunch of writers, read a bunch of samples, pitch the seed of the idea, if a writer responds to it, they'll think about a take on the idea, like how they think it could be a movie. They'll pitch it back to you. You pick the best one, or, you know, the one you jive with creatively that has your same vision. You're going like rowing in the same direction. And then you do the same thing with director. Or, well, you know, theoretically, best case scenario, you can get the script written first.
Right.
Sometimes you can't. It's all about money and like the Tetris of the puzzle pieces, but hopefully you can get the script written first. And so that involves like working really closely with the writer, reading every draft, returning notes, having calls. Yeah, so that's like just really the best part. It's just really fun, especially if you click with the writer. It's can be not the best part if you do not click with the writer.
Oh my God, I'm sure.
And then, yeah, try to get a director on and try to get talent attached. And so that's kind of the producing part of it, because it's really about how can we get this made? And there's creativity in the script phase, like when I'm giving script notes, but there's creativity in like, how can we get this made part? Because they're, you know, movies are really hard to make now. So it's a Tetris of just really, you know, seeing what the market wants, seeing who the audience for the movie is. And so if the audience for the movie is XYZ, where does XYZ watch content? XYZ watches content on Netflix. So how can I get it to Netflix? Okay, I know these 3 people. I know they're looking for these kind of things. They're not going to buy it unless there's a talent attached. Okay, well, who's the most interesting talent? Or they're not going to buy it unless it's a director they have a deal with. Okay, well, how can we get to that director? So there's no right or wrong answer. There's no same answer. It's just, I think, again, it comes back to point of view. Having a point of view and an interesting story that's honest. I think I'm a little naive. I've only, you know, produced 2.5 movies and a pilot.
She says only. I'm like, that's so
Yeah,
incredible.
right. Only.
Only, yeah. We'll need to reframe that.
I still believe that if you have a point of view and a specific voice, you can find a way to make it. But there are all those levers to pull, because like people are risk averse. People don't want to spend money. The market is changing. Nobody really is sure how it's all going to net out. So development is about having an idea and like getting the party together in like the most.
It's remarkable to me though that you kind of you're actually the originator. You know, I think so often when we think about movies being made, or, you know, stuff that we see, content we're consuming on television or wherever we're consuming it, we think about it as like a writer came up with that. Or, I mean, oftentimes people don't even realize there are writers. They think it's just the directors that come up with it, you know.
Right.
But we don't think that there's maybe a bunch of people like you who are wildly creative, who have these original ideas and then put the whole thing together. It's amazing to me.
That's how it works a lot. I mean, also there's tons of times you acquire scripts. And so that's really all from the writer. And then you can still help develop it. There could still be notes and things from that process, even though that came from the writer. I mean, and our company is a little bit interesting. So I think that's why more so our ideas are internally generated. But
well, it's this idea of going like, oh, something, you think that something is valuable, or you think that there is, you know, this idea of the essence of what a producer is to produce something. It's something I find valuable. I'm going to do everything I can to take it into the world, you know, so it is that essence, I guess, really.
I was talking to a friend about a dramaturg, and I grew up doing theater, but I didn't, as we mentioned, go to drama school. So I was like asking her, what exactly is a dramaturg? And she was like, well, it's just sort of someone who, you know, works with the writer and director and is kind of like the liaison between the two and makes sure that, like, you know, thematically we're all on the same page. And I was like, okay, in the best case scenario, that's sort of a producer, a creative producer, because they're bringing all the people together. And in my mind, my job as a producer is to hire the best people I know, give them everything they need to do their jobs, and then make sure that I can hold the creative integrity of the project and that everyone is rowing in the same direction and we're all on the same team. And we all have the same vision of what this project is. And of course, that's overly simplistic, but
of course,
in like the ideal way, that is what I think a producer does.
That's probably the most misunderstood title in all of filmmaking in general, is producer, because there are different levels of producing, and you can get real specific on certain aspects of producing. But I love that there are a person or people who are sort of like the glue that's trying to keep the creative vision together, and how it can be something completely different from start to finish, or it can be the exact same thing. It just doesn't, it's just per project, whatever happens, totally. Whoever becomes attached is going to shift it and change it and mold it. And as a producer, you get the chance to not only watch it flourish, but also direct it, which is great.
Totally.
What part of this do you love, Cam? I mean, do you feel, are there parts of it that you're just like, oh my God, I could do this forever? And there must be parts that I'm sure you hate of the job of producing, of the sort of creative development stuff.
I'm so much better at the creative stuff. So I feel the most confident in my ability to work with a script. So whether that's me writing it, or whether that's me giving notes, whether that's me working with a writer, that's my most confident. So that also translates a little bit to, after the script is written, talking to the director about character, talking to the actors about, what they need, motivation, like those things I feel I could do every day. I feel most confident. The more businessy things I'm kind of new to, and I don't feel as confident in, and I'm not sure I've had the best examples, to be honest, or at least I haven't had. Most of my examples have been totally fine, as I mentioned, very, very, very successful, but not the kind of producer I want to be. So I am figuring that out, and it's a lot of, just to be honest, insecurity. But because of what I've seen is a lot of like smoke and mirrors and manipulation, and I'm still trying to figure out, like, is that the only way? Like, do I just need to reframe, and it's not manipulation in such a weird way? It's just like juggling in a way that isn't necessarily so negative. Like, maybe that is just what you kind of have to do. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm still learning, and maybe as I do more of it, I'll be more confident in it. But right now it's like, I just want to sit with the actor and the director and the writer and just like have a kumbaya session and like try to get something cool made.
Well, you're so good at it. I mean, my God, of course that's what you want to do. Like, it makes so much sense. It's the stuff that feels most natural and easy to you. I really do want to believe, though, that there is this other version. I mean, we're talking about it as far as, the breakaway from the tyrannical sort of leaders, but I really do want to believe that there is this other cultural version that we can create that is more, I don't know, because I just feel like there's something really lovely about being honest about what you want and not having to manipulate for it, or to sort of be in integrity when we go after these things. Because if we are doing things with the right for the right reasons and with the right values, do we have to manipulate for things? I just don't think we do. Like, I mean, I saw us go, Cameron and I literally went for a walk yesterday and both asked each other for things in a way that was so effortless and honest, and we both give each other honest answers. And can we help you? No. Can we? Yes. And it's beautiful, but that's because the relationship is genuine. We know where we're coming from. So maybe it's about fostering these relationships like throughout the industry, so that's just the only way you do business. I don't know.
I love that. I
do
think too, there is a way to kind of like reframe, because it's a little bit also like sales, and which isn't negative. Like, you're not manipulating in a bad way necessarily. And this is what I'm going to bring up again, like point of view. And I also even learned this, like when I was working in casting and I was like 22, like really young. It's I want to present to someone my idea, but I'm going to present it in options, because this is a conversation, and I'm going to present it in ways like maybe even they're the actual decision maker. So I'm not saying like, this is what we should do, but I'm going to present to you a list of options, but I'm going to do it in a way that you pick my idea, and that is also part of being a producer. And that's not really negative. Like, that is just kind of part of dealing with people and understanding people and kind of presenting things in ways like, I want to be highly influential, and maybe this is how I'm going to do it this way with this person, and I'm going to do it this way with this person. And I don't mean that in a negatively manipulative way. That's just
it's dealing with an audience. It's knowing who you're talking to and how to appeal to them. It really is, if you think about it, like as an actor, if you're in a scene, you have to find a way to reach the other actor. You have to find a way to push them or move them or try and provoke a response from them. So there's a very specific way I'm going to go to try and connect with Matt in a scene than I am with you, because you're very different human beings, and I don't see that as manipulative. I see it as trying to reach a person on a way that sort of impacts them, right, or has an effect.
Totally. So I think that's the reframe too. So it's what you said, Gisette, about like fostering true, authentic relationships where you can really be vulnerable and ask for what you want and really invest in the other person. And then it's also like, you know, it doesn't have to be skeevy. Like, it's just like sales and kind of, you know, getting what you want.
Ultimately, I think to a certain extent, we are salesmen first. And I think having come from the restaurant business as well, you know, you're doing a lot in those moments to sort of convince a person of what they want. And it's generally, in a lot of ways, you're kind of making the decision for them, but making them feel like they made the decision is kind of what that is a lot. And it's not necessarily manipulation. It's sometimes it's just a matter of economy. Like, you just got to get the table turned. Let's go, you know, sort of thing, get the decision made. And so there's that. But then, so when you're in these situations and maybe you are seeing, you know, the wrong way to do it, how are you framing that, or how are you turning that around to a positive?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I do think I'll probably get better at this, but several of these instances, I kind of only knew it in retrospect, because I'm building the plane as I'm flying it. And I'm like, oh, this is really hard. And I don't really know it. And later I'm like, oh, that could have been easier if it hadn't been presented to me in this way. Like, it didn't have to be that way. Like, I could have done this. But I think, you know, in this HBO Max show that I did last year, amazing. I had just truly an insane amount of responsibility, which is very, very cool. But I think
and it was your idea, and HBO Max got you to let you make it, Cam. I mean, it's a huge thing. The show was gorgeous. It was gorgeous.
It was amazing, but it was in COVID and it was in December and it's a summer show. Like, all of these things that were like knocks against us. But again, I was able, like, the coolest thing I did was hire these physical producers that I just loved, and they were so awesome and amazing, and every person on that team was great. And so when I was having some bumps in the road, some things that were difficult, again, that maybe didn't have to be difficult, but you know, I just was really honest and transparent with everyone. And I don't think it was tactical at the moment. It was just like the only thing I knew. Like, look, I understand this is difficult, and this is what I'm dealing with, and I'm trying to, you know, deal with it the best I know how. I understand why you're frustrated. Let me go back and let me talk to the, you know, just kind of like, I get it. Like, look, I'm frustrated too. I'm trying, and we all want the best for the show. So, I do think
it's probably so refreshing, though, for people, by the way, to have people, someone actually be honest with them and sort of not lead them down a road or make them believe something's happening that's not happening. I mean, my God, in a sea of kind of insincerity and dishonesty, it's kind of wonderful to have that sort of, I don't know, torch of hope. Like,
but also I think what it made me realize is, like, it feels like those people in particular we're used to dealing with honest people. Like, they are honest people. They hire honest people. Like,
that's kind of cool.
Actually weren't used to the dishonesty that I was trying to navigate.
Right.
So, I mean, there are smart people who have been around a long time, so of course they understand. But but I was talking to actually one of those producers, like, weeks after we wrapped or whatever. We were just having drinks. And we were talking about COVID in particular, and like, I'm just so excited for COVID, like, just to like remove that issue from producing. And he was like, I always think that a production has a bucket of problems. Like, let's just think of a bucket of problems. The bucket is always full. So if you take COVID out of the bucket of problems, something else will go in its place.
Oh my God, I love that.
Always full. Yeah. And I was like, that's brilliant and true.
Because I think true.
This pilot, like I mentioned, I think was particularly hard for a lot of reasons, not the least of which it was my first, network pilot to EP. But I think every project is going to have something that you're going to have to navigate, and most of it is people. Like, the hardest part for me was kind of navigating these two really big personalities. But I don't think I'm alone, and I don't think that project's an isolated incident. That is the job. Really is kind of navigating all the personalities. So once I kind of realized that, I was like, okay, well, just figure it out. That's what you have to do.
I also feel like we're in a city of big personalities. I'm like, this is literally the center of, this is big personality central. Like, it doesn't get bigger than this. So it's always going to be that, it's always going to be that, especially at a certain level when people are sort of demanding things and expecting things and they're used to working a certain way. Yeah, you do have to figure it out.
I had a very young person come to me about wanting to be a director, and they were doing little projects with their camera and their friends. And he said, he was like, I don't think I really want to do this at all anymore. And I was like, well, why not? So, well, because, 2 minutes in, all my batteries died because we forgot to charge them. And he started just listing all of these problems. And he said, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be. It just seems like it's full of problems. And I was like, well, here's the thing. At best, as a filmmaker, as a director, you make a thing, like you actually get something on screen and it gets seen. Like that's just like best case scenario. But your day to day is really just problem solving. That's really what it is. And whether it's personalities or charged batteries or whatever it is, those are that's actually your duty, on set, whatever your job is. It's really just to solve problems.
It so is.
Totally. So is. That's really great advice. Did that director follow through with quitting, or did he live to see another film?
Yeah, he's having a resurgence of interest. He went off to moved away and did something else completely different, but he's starting to feel the urge to come back. And I'm like,
it'll haunt you.
Like Godfather 3.
Will haunt you.
Yeah, you pull.
Good luck running away. It comes to find you.
Back in.
It sure does. I'd love to talk about your art, Cam. Actually, I would love to speak a little more about, because obviously now we've dealt with business, and I love that you've given us these insights into producing, even in a way I sort of didn't have a full grasp on. So I'm so grateful for that. But I'd love to speak a bit about what you're creating and the stories you're bringing into the world. Obviously, I've read a lot of your work, and I'm a huge fan. And I love this. I love that you create these women that are deeply flawed and sort of in the midst of big life changes and sort of on the cusp of discovering a new version of themselves. And I always feel they're so lovable, with such open hearts and such courageous attitudes and such bravery. I love how you bring these women into the world. I'm curious about where that comes from, if it's sort of you processing or is it sort of you just imagining? Where do you find these characters?
I think it's both. Yeah, it's empathy and imagination. I like being honest about womanhood and I guess humanity and all the ambition and mediocrity and fears and flaws, and because it's not exciting to watch like film and TV about people that I don't recognize, that aren't reflective of my lived experience and the people that I know. And then, from a narrative perspective, like so having all these, my atypical path to get here, what I think is to my benefit is everything kind of feeds the other part. So like one of my favorite things, or like pieces of advice or things I think about when I'm writing, was actually told to me by an acting teacher. I studied at Steppenwolf for a while, and I loved my acting teacher. And he was amazing. Like people want to fight for the positive choices. Like you just want to see someone fighting for connection. Like you don't want to see someone like, fuck you, I'm done with you, and leave the room. You want to see someone fight for the positive choices. And so then one step further, like my job as a writer then is to put as many obstacles on my characters as they possibly can, and then still see them fight for the positive choices. So like, I just think that's what life is. That's like every day, unless you're just a total nihilist, like you are fighting for hope. You are fighting for connection. And like every day, especially these days, it seems maybe harder and harder, but that's real life. So how can I take that character and make them fight for connection? And that's probably going to be to give them a lot of flaws. It's probably going to be to make them at the end of their rope. And it's probably going to be to put them in like a situation, that is really hard for them to get what they want. And so then you fight for them as they are fighting, and they're going to make a lot of mistakes because they're flawed and they're, you know, self-destructive in ways that I am, in ways that, you know, weirdly in ways that I wish I could be, because sometimes the perfectionist in me doesn't allow me to be self-destructive, but I wish I could. And I'm like fighting against myself. So my characters can do that. Which is,
oh my God, I love
to,
that.
Live through the masochism of your characters. Like, you're like, no, you should live through the successes of your characters. But it's like, I had a therapist tell me that once, like, because I reference like British writers, creators a lot in the kind of things I love, like obviously Fleabag, Catastrophe, then like some lesser known ones like Billy Piper and Lucy Preble did I Hate Susie, and then there was Daisy Haggard did Back to Life, and I feel like it's just this British sensibility of these writers, creators. Sharon Horgan and Aisling Bea did another one, This Way Up, I think. Oh my God, I totally like forgot why I brought that up.
No, were you talking about that sensibility?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking about Fleabag in particular, and the therapist was like, it feels like you wish you were Fleabag, which is like not like a little antithetical, because obviously she's like fucking nuts. But
I really get that though, because I mean, I'm a recovered perfectionist, and I feel like I have that same thing. I'm always kind of wanting to, it's why I think in acting, I love so much those moments when I can sort of just be free and be, I mean, I'm always chasing freedom. I think I'm always writing about women trying to be free. And I think that is, it's that thing of being able to sort of have that delicious escapism or that expression of yourself in that way that you just couldn't find in your own life because you're just too shit scared everyone will abandon you. You know, I mean, that's really the fear, right? Otherwise we would just do it. We would own that kind of desire in ourselves. It's so powerful that we get to explore it through art though. Like, isn't that just the most beautiful thing?
It's, yeah. One we made was this movie Song. But it was like the first movie.
We broke up for a sec. We go, go back, Cam, say that again.
Take it back. So and take it back. I know, usually my internet's okay, but it's like a little spotty. In 2020, I made this movie Songbird. So it's like, you know, it's not the best movie that ever was made, but we were the first movie to go back into production after the world shut down. And it ended up being really successful for us. We packaged it up and sold it at Cannes. But a lot of people were kind of like, because it was a pandemic movie. It was a pandemic thriller, like kind of, you know, a couple years in the future. What if all of the worst case scenarios had continued on? And a lot of people way too soon, like.
Dang.
Yeah, lost you again. Oh, bummer.
This is a safe space to everyone knows what's happening.
Oh, sorry, dude. You broke up one more time. Do you want to tell it again one more time?
We lost you when you were talking about Songbird. People were saying it was maybe too soon.
Yeah, I wonder if I should change to my phone. I don't know why it's doing this, but to me, and like the people that were, some people, so, you know, it came out in 2020 and some people were thinking it was too soon, but to me and like the people who were creating it was like, this is a safe space to exercise all your fears, because in a movie, you know, you get a happy ending and we're scared right now. We don't know what's happening. It's unknown, but you can cry and you can be scared and you can feel all of those things in the safe confines of this film. So I think it's the same thing that you were talking about, Josette, about.
Yeah, it's weird because
I like to write and you like to write. It's like the same idea that.
I think that's the thing is it's you know, great art ultimately is it has to find a space for you. You have to sort of take back aspects of yourself that don't get light. You know, bringing the shadow to the work, I think, is the most delicious, enjoyable part about creation anyway. I mean, I sort of had that realization because I'm not a fan of horror films. My imagination is far too overactive. I mean, I watched Stranger Things and then I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself at nighttime because I was too scared. So I thought that creature from the upside down was going to crawl out while I was peeing, you know? So I mean, my God, it's just not good for me. But when I started to understand the sort of the what's underneath the creation of horror films and why horror writers do this, it's exactly the same thing, right? That you're saying is this, it's this exercising of these extraordinary fears and letting them play out in a way so that we can kind of have a catharsis and we don't have to then have them plague us and have me sort of be too scared to pee at night because the creature's going to come through the wall. You know, I mean, it makes sense. I'm like, oh, that really does serve a purpose. It's kind of cool.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's like, I mean, this is oversimplified, but when you create art or maybe you watch movies and TV for either escapism or catharsis. And maybe it's both, you know, I don't think those are super binary, but it's, you know, that's the best case scenario, I think.
I mean, I love that. Look, it's one of the bonuses of going to drama school, Cam. You get these fun facts that you can throw back years later in a podcast. But, you know, back in the day of the ancient Greeks, when the Greek theater was around, people would have ailments or sort of mental anguish and they would go to their healers and the healers would prescribe them plays. They would say, you're suffering from this and this, and we prescribe you to go and watch 2 dramas or two tragedies and then a comedy. And they would be prescribed theatre as tonics for their systems. And I think it's so important. Brilliant. You know? Yeah, there you go. You didn't even need to go to drama school. You just got it from me. There you go. And I never thought that would be valuable. Now look, it became valuable. Thanks, drama school.
My mind is blown. That's amazing.
It only took 14 episodes of your own podcast to be able to use it. So here we are.
Fuck yeah, I got my money's worth.
I love what you said about British TV though too. Is like I've always had an affinity for it in a lot of ways. You know, the Office. Like people were always like, "Don't you just love The Office?" And I was like, "I've actually never seen the American one, not for any bad reasons. It's just that my love is so much for the the Gervais Merchant version because it is real people just living regular lives, but wanting to be kind of extraordinary in strange ways. David Brent is an amazing character because he wants to be a comedian and a musician and all of these things that we all, for lack of a better word, fail at to a certain extent, or fail up out of or whatever it is. And did you see The Detectorists? Have you seen that one? I think it might be on Netflix. It's Toby Jones and I'm forgetting his real name, the guy who played Gareth on the original Office. And they're guys who just go out and they use metal detectors and try to find little tidbits of treasure, and it's just,
oh my God, how delightful!
It's wonderful. It's so quiet and normal, and just. But that's the thing is there's a certain catharsis to watching that because I think that part of me would kind of like Josette, your dream of just making jam. But part of me, is like I would love to just grab a plot in the mountains and and make cheese or whatever. It's like that's definitely there. And so it's kind of fun to live that life through somebody else on screen.
Of course. Yeah. The vicarious delight. It's wonderful. Cam, what do you feel like effect you're trying to have on your audience? Like if you think about your work going into the world, what do you feel like it's going to do? Do you have an intention with that?
Oh, wonderful. I don't know. I mean, I was thinking about this, the one pilot, Cropper Sisters. So that Josette and I might work on together. And the way I was describing it recently to someone was like, it's a tragedy. Like it's truly a tragedy, a story about like grief and identity and obligation of family, all of these like kind of heavy things, but wrapped up in like a girl about town comedy. It's like tackles all of those things in a way that only a comedy can. Because despite how we've been talking about my work, they are actually comedies.
Delicious comedies.
Yeah. I mean, like, of course, more dramedy, there's both, but like still like half hour, I'm not, writing Severance yet.
Although I wish I was, my God, holy hell. Matt, if you haven't seen Severance, please get on that as a matter of...
Well, I might be the only person in the world that stopped watching it. I will continue at some point in time. I understand. I get it. It's just I love how it's shot and I love all the actors and all the things, but right now in my life, I can't just be dragged for 4 episodes without knowing anything. And so it just got
just
after
know it's so worth it.
I hear it's very, very worth it. I mean, Adam Scott's one of the greatest, I just love him and everything. And the way that it's filmed is so. But yeah, anyways, I'll get there. But I was just like,
genius,
I love it, like talk about right now in your life. Yeah. So is there another time where another time maybe I could be dragged without information?
Absolutely. I think it's because of partially just making so many things, and my life is right now making 30-second commercials where I'm telling a story from start to finish. And so maybe that's just where my brain is like I need resolution, I need understanding. Like I did 20 minutes of the Batman movie and I was just like, give me a break, I'm done. So things like that are just I just can't do the slow roll anymore. So I binged Selling Sunset instead. It was fun.
You binged which?
Selling Sunset.
Selling Sunset.
I've
Sorry,
never seen
Ken, we
that,
segued though. Because we were talking about your work.
One of the realtors on Selling Sunset was at the same, get this, TikToker's stagecoach party I went to last weekend.
Oh my God.
Because the life of a producer is so glamorous.
Your life is wild that you're going to TikTokers parties. I mean, my gosh.
With the host of Selling Sunset.
That's amazing.
Holy heavens. Is that when you've made it these days, that you've been invited to a TikToker's party? Mm-hmm. It used to be collecting Brad Pitt's hair. Now it's TikTok parties. I just want to be like, wow.
Actually, at that party, though, it was so lame. It's hard to describe how lame it was. I could talk an hour about how lame these people are. But it's funny you say that because I started talking. I mean, the only 2 people that I really talked to there were these random people that just came up to me who were so weird, but not actually TikTokers. They were more kind of hangers on to one was a writer who was like, I'm going to pitch this guy something, but he was like, I feel bad actually having this tone about him because he was very earnest and very sincere, but asking me things like, so what does it feel like to be living your dream? What is the greatest thing you learned from, which is so great in this forum, but at a poolside party with a stranger, I was like, I don't know.
You've got to find the right room. Read the room. No, we're at a TikToker's party. The reason I brought
it up is because he was like, so when did you know you had made it? When did you know you made your big break? And I was like, I haven't yet. Yeah. So thank you.
Do you know what's so wild though is that looking at your life from the outside, and I think that this is probably the case for a lot of people, is looking at your life from the outside, you have Cam. And that's both delicious and terrifying to hear at the same time, maybe, because it's like, wait, this is it? This is what I think when people are like, you have already. I'm like, I have. But at the same time, we kind of have, it's like, because what more happens after this, right? What more deliciousness can happen that's more incredible than what you've just spoken about for the last hour, I mean, my God, it's extraordinary what you're doing. And you're working with some of the best people in the business. Look, obviously, I always hope for deepening and I want your shows to go. And yes, there's way more to come from here. But I don't think that you're out of the realm of your dreams, really. I think I don't know, from the outside, it doesn't look like it, that's for sure.
Well, thanks. I mean, I think that's part of the whole, I think that's maybe getting older and being a more evolved person. I'm like, I should have meditated. I should be meditating all the time because it's the goalpost is always moving.
Always moving. Yeah.
I even remember in college, I have this really distinct memory. My girlfriend, my roommate at the time was a psychology major, and she came home. She loved her classes and would and I love psychology too. So she would tell me all about what she learned, and she told something about a personality type, and I don't remember if it was called the striver or something.
Oh my God, I was literally thinking of the word striving as you were just about to start saying this. Yes.
And I remember thinking oh, that's me, but it's not necessarily a good thing because it's sort of this person will never be happy. They're always looking ahead, that sort of thing. Yeah. And even when I was in college, I was oh, that's me. And so that's something that it's tough because ambition is good and you like that, and you like that kind of type A part of you because you want that fire in your belly to keep going. That's how you make things happen. But to your point, Josette, about just maybe you have made it. It's hard to sit in that because,
of course,
you don't have the House or the Oscar or whatever arbitrary modicum of success you've like assigned, which is like silly and not.
It's strange because there's these kind of social markers that we associate with succeeding in the industry that I think are so skewed and so dangerous, because it is. I mean, I listened to that Matt Damon interview once. I mean, it's on YouTube. It's from years ago, but where he said he's so glad that he won that Oscar at the age of 26, because he said he got home from the Oscars that night and he lay there in bed and the statue was sitting on the end, like, you know, sort of on the pedestal or whatever, the nightstand. And he said he looked over it and he thought, my God, I don't feel any different. That was a fabulous night, but I don't feel any different. And he said, thank heavens I won this now, because I would have spent my entire life striving for this thing and it wouldn't have changed a damn thing about my life. You know, granted, he'd already made Good Will Hunting, so let's not talk about that. I mean, that was just a stroke of genius. And he's an incredible human being and actor and talent. But I think that's the thing, is that these markers set us up for such a dissatisfaction with where we are. And I think it's so unfair in a way, because my God, Cam, you're an inspiration to me. And I think you have such a huge influence on people around you, whether you realize it or not, in such a positive, light-bearing way that I just think, I hope you can see it, you know, in some ways, because it's exquisite what you're doing. And I just think of you as hugely successful, always. It's wild.
Thank you. I mean, that's so, I mean, you calling me a light source, it's like you are just emanating from every pore of your
friend.
Thank you. At every moment.
Even from your closet.
Even from my closet.
This is very lovely. I'm a, obviously first-time listener, or first-time caller, long-time listener of this podcast. So I've heard about the closet situation.
And I finally get to see me in it. Oh my God.
You know, it would be so dark, to be honest.
It's way more mysterious this way, Cam.
A true Harry Potter fan.
What are you doing to take care? Because, you're talking about the striving, and I have such an empathy for it, because I suffer from it too. But what are you doing to take care of your creative spirit while you crush and take over the world? How are you nurturing creativity amidst all of this?
Yes. Probably not enough, to be honest. I felt a little burnt out lately and a little on the hamster wheel. I mean, always like watching film and TV, I think, and talking about it, going on walks with you. And I mean, this is, becoming very aware as I'm speaking at this moment that I am not investing in it as much. I mean, I just finished another pilot like last month, so it hasn't been a long time since I've hung it up. And I mean, I guess in my even day-to-day work, I am giving notes and things like that. But
oh my God, you're always being creative. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in between books right now, so I really need to find another book. If you have any recommendations, I have a house full of books, a lot of which I haven't read. And I'm just like, I don't know which one. And I got a couple digitally that people sent to me that I'm really excited about, but I just like cannot motivate myself to read a book on my computer. Cause it's like, this is work. I want like a paper
escape.
Copy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I need to be better about it, to be honest. And I guess I kind of want to reframe that, because it's like, I don't want it to be another thing. Like I should put like, be creative on my to-do list. But I do feel a little bit empty. Not empty.
It's wild though, because there's that extreme. I mean, you've probably listened to her stuff. I'm obsessed with her, Martha Beck. She's obviously Oprah's life coach, and she's coached I don't know how many C-level human beings or just geniuses on the planet. But she's just a remarkable human being. She has a podcast, and she's always talking about how, in order to be creative, first you have to rest. She speaks about it all the time, and she's like, if you're feeling tired, you're feeling unstimulated, sleep. Go to bed. Mm-hmm. She says half of the time, all we're really trying to do in life as adults is to find permission to have a nap. It's just like to get somebody to give us permission to actually lie down and take a nap. And I'm like, oh my God, she really helped me with that. Where I'm like, sometimes I'm like, oh, it's 11 o'clock. I'm exhausted. I'm going to take a nap. And it's like, fine, Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's funny how I think that we do get to that stage with our creativity where it's like you've just churned out I mean, my God, Matt, you have to read this fucking script. I'm sending it to you as soon as I finish speaking on this podcast.
Thank you.
But you've just churned out this exceptional piece of work. And I mean, this is obviously just a time where you are needing that sort of rest and recovery.
Yeah.
And I think that's as important, right? I mean, it has to be.
It's so important.
Yeah, I think that's the journey too in a writer's life, which, I mean, as we've talked about, I've always had a day job, so to speak. Of course, my current day job is 100 hours a week, so it's a little more than a day job. But
yeah,
as I look to transition to the next phase, and I'm like sort of maybe looking at another job, but really, as I mentioned to Josette yesterday, really wanting to kind of take more time and just be a writer, you know? Mm-hmm. And so what does that look like? And it is the thing that, yes, I just finished a new project. So do I immediately move on to the next, or do I now take this time and like try to set this up, try to do more businessy stuff with this, try to get more people to see it, try to attach a director? Or is it like, what's the next thing? I need another.
Just take a nap.
Like, just take a nap. I know.
Or we just take a nap. Yeah, it's wild. It's hard to know. I think because it's like the art meeting commerce, right? It's like we're not just wild artists living in a cabin and you know, growing our own vegetables and plucking honey from a tree. We have to actually make money, you know. And I think when you are sort of wanting to make money out of your creativity, it does require this sort of business acumen and this. I don't know.
It changes the approach.
Money, but also the what?
It changes the approach a little bit too, because you're. You know, I was just talking about that with Brian, one of my creative partners. I was like, we should just make something just for fun, for no reason at all, just a short or something like that, because everything that we were doing up to this point is just all for client work, and it's just so you need that. But I was also going to say too, I do yard work is a really nice way to because it's physical labor, and it's not a workout. And it's something that you can detach and listen to a book on Audible or something along those lines. And it's not creatively associated unless it is, or like I'm renovating, you know, my girlfriend's kitchen right now, things like that. While still kind of creative, it's completely detached from filmmaking and stuff. And those sorts of things are rejuvenating in their own way.
I think too, things like that. And like, I think why people like cooking or baking is I don't know if somebody made up this word that I know, or, if it's actually like a scientific thing, but called completioning. So it's like writing or creative endeavors will just be sprawling and take forever. And you're just eventually I'll finish it. Maybe I won't. But if you like bake a cake, there's 6 steps, you check each one off, and then it's done. And then you have it. And it's like this sense of like validation you feel from just like completioning things and like checking it off the list is great. You know?
God, maybe that's why I love baking so much. Yeah. That really makes a lot of sense. It makes a ton of sense.
You probably are really creative when you do that too. Like, I think it's like when people come up with ideas when they're driving or in the shower, when you're doing these kind of routine things. It's like I always forget. So your right brain is creative. So when your left brain is like occupied because it's doing like a routine task, then your right brain, your creative side can really kind of like flourish. So you probably get a lot of...
It's so true. I've had a ton of sort of lightning bolt story solutions like land down through the crown chakra as I'm stirring a stew. You have no idea. It happens all the time. That's why I still cook dinner every night, because I'm like, hell yeah, I need it. I love you just called me a witch. Oh, that's funny. She said, you're such a witch. I'll take it.
It comes up a lot on the podcast.
Reclaiming the archetype. Let me tell you, I will be the woman alone in the forest anytime.
I want to also go to your psychic the next time you go.
Oh my gosh, you have to. I need to hook you up with all of this stuff. Yes. Definitely. So let's get witchy then for one little last question.
Yeah.
Matt and I love to sort of debate this and discuss it with everybody. And if you're a long-time listener, you know all about this one. Yeah. We want to know where you think your creativity comes from.
I mean, I think I've hit it a couple times, but I think it's empathy and curiosity and imagination. I think it's like sprinkle in a little bit of genetics. You know, my family's very creative. So I like was, you know, kind of born with like, oh, this is a thing. But then I think, just empathy and curiosity is just like always going to lead you to creativity.
Yeah, it's so true. Do you feel like when you say you were born with it, do you feel like there was obviously like a nurturing thing, right? It was nurtured into your house, or do you feel like it's coded into your DNA?
I think it's coded into my DNA.
Ooh, that's cool.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's nurture. I was going to say almost more nature than nurture. I mean, but I guess it is nurture. I mean, I grew up in it's interesting, a very musical household. Like my whole family played music. I grew up, playing piano, and some of my favorite memories still to this day are, playing the guitar and singing and harmonizing with my whole family. But my whole family, aunts and uncles, cousins, everybody. But nobody did it for a job. Because they're like, it's a hobby, and this is, I think, the perfectionist part of me. I'm from Texas, so it's all kind of, waspy, and you get married out of college and you have a job, and it's all, and great. But that was always seemed like what my family, who's very creative, could have maybe even been more creative than me. I don't know, but they all chose like the more, quote, normal thing, or the stability. No, even though everyone grew up with creativity, no one else chose to do this.
Wow. So you're the first generation of wild, brave, courageous creatives. That's really beautiful, Cam. You next leveled the shit out of your line.
I think too, not to get a downer, but when I was quite young, I was like 1, so I don't remember, but I had an older sister that passed. And I think, even though I don't remember any of that, I think it was on me to make everyone happy, to kind of like make people forget, to like be that performative kind, not people pleaser in a way that, so that's why I do think it's like, I used to write and perform slam poetry.
Oh my God, I love this.
Yeah.
I haven't in so long, but I really loved it. But I had a piece where it was like, I know I'm forgetting, but it's something about this life is, kind of as close as the double helix of my DNA. Like it just kind of is, has always been who I am, I think. And I think that's those two parts of me, I think this is very common, are my biggest kind of internal conflict, because I did grow up with that sort of normalcy, stability, whatever. And it's like, oh, that's what I should be doing. But then who I am is kind of, no, I'm not going to, be this like creative, wild woman who, so that's a conflict. But I guess coming back to what I said about my characters is just, if you put them in the most amount of conflict, then I am a great character in my own story, I guess.
But I think also developing the ability to sort of hold that paradox within yourself is so brilliant. And I think that those two things are the things that create a beautiful, exceptional showrunner. And I know that that's what you are quickly becoming. And I think that you can't be a showrunner without those two things.
Yeah.
So you're calling it conflict, but I see it as the recipe really for what you truly desire. It's kind of magical.
Yeah. I think it might have been Molly Asher. So she's, Oscar winning producer. She's Chloe Zhao's, producer. I think it was a podcast that she was on, and she was saying something that like I forget what her dad did, but her mom was like a special education teacher. And she kind of like looked to them as like what a producer is. Like, I'm going to teach, I'm going to guide, I'm going to be, nurturing. And that's how I'm going to look at my job as a producer. And I was like, wow.
So cool.
Yeah.
I really do think that it is, though. Like everything we're discovering along this journey of this, our sort of becoming as full humans or full versions of ourselves really is informing what we want to do and what we want to achieve. I see that with everybody we're talking to, and all of my dear friends. It's beautiful. Oh, Cam, this was so wonderful. Thank you for coming and talking to us.
Such a highlight. I had the meetings today. Meetings.
Oh gosh. Well, I'm glad we gave you a little escape for a moment, and thank you for gifting us your time. I know you don't have a lot of it, so thank you.
Yes, yes. I'm so glad to know you, Matt. And yeah,
It was great to meet you. Thank you so much. And thanks for listening to the podcast in addition to being a first-time caller. Yeah.
How can I help with anything? I mean, let me know, of course, maybe offline, or you can edit this out. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, of course. Well, you could just share it with anybody who you think would delight in an episode. Yeah,
exactly.
Of course. Just like when I'd send you Oprah episodes and bug you, with life-changing ideas.
I know.
I love it. Oh, my darling. Well, I sure do love you. Thank you so much.
Love you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I just wish you all the best success with everything. You so deserve it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mwah.
Okay, goodbye.
It's exciting.
Bye, darling.
Bye. Take care. See you soon.
You too.
Bye-bye.